It is really a pleasure and an honor to make this introduction. My sense is that occasionally in history, great leaders step forward in times of great need to accept the responsibility of addressing great challenges. Michigan's been struggling under some of the greatest challenges any state has ever faced, and we've been fortunate that a leader has come along who has the right skills and the right attitude at the right time. Governor Rick Snyder has what Michigan needs right now in our quest to once again become a great state. He is a business leader who understands that we must be competitive for investment, for talent, and for our place in the global economy. You know, over the years, I've heard lots of politicians talk about their support for small business. But rare indeed is the government leader who, by temperament and background, really demonstrates a commitment to small business owners and follows through with that commitment by taking action. From his public embrace of economic gardening to his creative and purposeful accomplishment of business tax reform, Governor Rick Snyder has vividly shown that he is a most unusual political leader. He's an innovator. Rick Snyder is truly a friend of small business, and we appreciate all he's done and all he plans to do for our state. Please join me in welcoming Governor Rick Snyder. So glad to have you here.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Please be seated. Well, thank you for that fabulous welcome. It's great to be with you. And Rob, thank you for the introduction. That was very nice. To put it in context, I go back a year. I was up here a year ago. And one of the big differences is the last time I was up here giving a talk to this group, I had a 5-minute clock going saying, you got 5 minutes. You better say it quick and sit down. And I don't know if you recall, in that 5 minutes, I tried to share a few things with you that I actually don't cover too often today because we're farther along that path. But fundamentally, last year I talked about 3 things. About the need for Michigan to have a vision, about the need for Michigan to have a plan, and about the need for Michigan to take action. The vision is the vision we've been living. It is time to reinvent Michigan. Fixing Michigan is not good enough. When you're near the bottom, do not aspire to move up 2 or 3 notches. Aspire to be the best. Set your target on being number 1 and accept nothing less in terms of setting high expectations. The second part is you need a plan. And we had a 10-point plan. We had those campaign white papers that if you actually took the time to read them, you probably could go to sleep. But they are actually good, thoughtful pieces that I'm proud of and I still refer to today. I do pull out those papers because one thing I'm proud to say, and hopefully people believe it, is we're doing what we said we were going to do and actually following through. And the last piece is action. Too often people plan and they don't act. And that's been a major challenge in our state. So that's where the new phrase you hear over and over again that I will not give up is the phrase relentless positive action. It's a new way of doing things. I believe it is fundamentally the right way of doing things in our state. And for those of you that haven't run across relentless positive action, what is it? It's basically an approach that says we have serious problems to solve. Some of these problems go back a year or two. Many of the problems go back a decade or two. Some of them go back to when some of us were back in school. And the issue is we're going to solve those problems systematically. We're going to line up the problems and knock them off one after another. And in the process of doing that, we're not going to blame anyone. Blame has no value. It's negative energy. It doesn't solve any problem. The second thing is we could care less about who gets credit. If you're solving a problem, we all win together. So it's a fundamental approach to say the talk isn't the part that really counts. The part that really counts is coming up with solutions. Solutions that we win together with. And so that's our operating model. And I know many of you live that model. You may not have had a term for it, but to be a small business person, to build that enterprise, to be that leader, many of you took that very same approach and live that every day. And we need to pass that on to other people. Now, in terms of specifics, we've come a long way, and some of those came out last year. I remember standing up here last year and listening to some of the other people that were running, and the topic of the Michigan business tax came up. Everybody had that on their list. But the funny part is some of them talked about taking off the surcharge. One of them talked about cutting it in half. My simple view is that it was the dumbest tax in the United States, and if you take dumb and divide by 2, it's still dumb. So it was time to slay that dragon. Cutting it made no sense. It was time to kill it. And thanks with my partners in the legislature, many of whom are here, we killed it. Because it was a job killer. Because you are in the forefront of job creation. And we need to put you in the best position possible to create more and better jobs. And that's the message we needed to send. Now, beyond the MBT, there are many other things that we're in the process of doing. They're not all done yet. This is a living thing. But we created the Office of Regulatory Reinvention. We are going through every regulation the state has and saying, does it need to exist? Is it doing the right thing? So we are challenging every one of those. But more importantly than just challenging the written word itself is how it's applied. It's about the attitude of application to say, shouldn't we be assuming the average business person, the average citizen is a good, honest person, and how do we help you succeed rather than punishing people? And for the people doing the bad things, we'll take care of them. But we're here to provide great customer service in a fiduciary way. And that's the focus you're seeing. And it's great teamwork. With the MEDC, with Mike Finney, Dan Wyatt is doing a great job. Working hard in the DEQ, one of the areas I heard about more than any other on the campaign trail. We are going to get to customer service in government. Now you go to the other things, a couple quick ones I'll mention. One is the budget itself. If you think about it, most people don't understand what business really wants. The number one rule for most business people is you want to know what the rules are, and they're going to be applied consistently and fairly, and this is the operating structure. And how can you do that if you didn't have a budget that worked? Because you were just waiting for the day where the rules were going to turn. So the point of this is this is a jobs creating budget. And the tough part is for the average person, when you say you did a budget, you get a yawn because they don't know what to call it. This is a jobs budget. This is a budget focused on saying we are going to be fiscally responsible. We are going to be fiscally responsible not just in the short term, but we are going to be making payments on that balance sheet, on those liabilities. So we can say we're going to create an environment for long-term success for you, but not just for you, for your children. And that's something we all deserve, and they deserve. And we're going to stay focused on that. Now, with respect to this group in particular, it was fun being here last year, besides the 5-minute time limit. Because I had an opportunity to hear a person of passion get up. And boy, was she fired up, if you remember back. Cynthia got up, she was pumped up, and we heard about gardening. And about where gardening was going, and she was right. And that's why it's proud to be here today to watch the progress. Because as you've heard, we're refocusing on gardening. Gardening is the answer. Before we spend time going to faraway places in the world saying that's our primary mechanism for success, the thing that every one of you know as a business person is when you have a challenged environment, you don't go after new customers. You make sure your current customers are the happiest, most successful people in the world. And the world's best marketing, because we will get to the point where we're going to bring in people from out of state, the best marketing you can do is not some flashy ad. It's the word of mouth from you. Happy customers is the very best marketing. So I want to compliment you on that, and I think your incoming chair is great too. Jan, he and I go back a long time in the Ann Arbor days of the startup world. So you got a great team that you're working with in terms of those kind of issues. So if you look at it, gardening is going to be a focus. One thing I encourage you to look at is go to the MEDC site and look at Pure Michigan Business Connect. We are working hard to create environments for small business to flourish even more. We announced a program with DTE and Consumers Energy, how they can buy more in Michigan, and we have other people joining into that program. We also announced great things on the capital front, both in terms of equity and loan. Huntington Bank stepping up. We have other banks joining that process. So we're giving you more tools and opportunities in a level playing field fashion to succeed. We are going to keep that up. We're only beginning. But I do have an ask. And it ties into what Jan talked about. Getting involved, speaking up. Because the greatest challenge we have in Michigan is not a statute. It's not a regulation. It's us. It's our culture. And I talked about that last year. We've been beaten up for so many years. We have too negative of a culture. We have gotten too down on ourselves, become too negative, too rearward looking, too divisive. Because as we've had a shrinking pie, we spend way too much energy fighting over a shrinking pie, where someone's trying to win and someone's trying to lose, and every time that happens, every Michigander loses. It is time for a new attitude. It is time to use the relentless positive action focus to say, let's change that culture. Let's start getting some attitude. We're the best in the world, and we got to believe it and act like it. So it is time to become more positive in our state. It is time to be more forward-looking. And it is time to be inclusive, to recognize we're going to win together. And you are on the forefront of doing that, because that's how you built your organizations. And you need to be the ambassadors out in the field, talking to the people in your companies, talking to your friends and neighbors, passing that word to say, when you hear those words about how we're doing something terrible, stop them and say, here's the solution, and let's work on the solution rather than complaining about the problem. And as you create those jobs, the very best thing you can do to help all of us, particularly those of us in public service, is to talk about the jobs you're creating. And don't look down on it, even if it's one job. Be proud of that. Talk about it. Because if you take 12,000 entities and you say one job, that's a lot of jobs. And then you start saying it's 2 jobs and 3 jobs. That is the backbone of the reinvention of Michigan. It's going to be small and medium-sized businesses, startup businesses creating jobs. So you are the ambassadors on the forefront, and the only way it's going to happen is through your hard work. So keep running your businesses the best you can, but speak up. Let the press people know. Let the people in your communities know. Be loud. This is not the time for the humble Michigan. We've got to get some attitude. And a positive attitude, but one we can be proud of. And we are on that path. We are on the path to reinvention. We still got a lot of hard work to do. But to the degree you're fired up to be on that path, you should know we're with you. I am absolutely committed to the reinvention of Michigan, and I believe you are too. So coming out of here, ask yourself the question, are you going to walk out and say, this is a nice lunch? I sure hope not. I hope you're going to walk out of this meeting and say, I'm going to do something. So thank you so much for the opportunity to be with you. I think they got a bunch of questions, but let's go. Go out of here with some attitude and some action. Thank you.